everybody, so today we are doing 1-3 evaluating functions and function families. So I can evaluate and identify function families. Okay, so our warm-up. Evaluate the graph of the following functions. Okay, so we have -2. F of x equals x. So we're just copying down the same thing again, so it's just -2. The next one, we have f of x equals x squared. So what is -2 squared? Well, that's just 4. The next one, absolute value. So what is the absolute value of -2? It's just +2. 2 to the -2 power. That's the same thing as just saying 1 over 2 to the 2 power, which is just 1 over 4. And then -2 to the 3rd, which is 8. Perfect. The square root of -2, or not, yeah, -2. Do we know, can we take the square root of a negative number? No, we can't. So we're just going to write undefined. Okay, so now let's do this next one, -1. Again, -1. -1 squared is +1. The absolute value of -1 is +1. 2 to the -1st power is just 1 over 2. -1 to the 3rd power is -1. The square root of -1 is undefined. Okay. Next one, 0. 0 squared is 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. 2 to the 0 is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. That's something that we have to make sure that we remember. 0 to the 3rd is, again, 0. 0 times 0 is 0 times 0 again, another 0. Square root of 0 is 0, because 0 times 0 equals 0. Okay. The next one, again, this is still the same number, so this is still just a 1. 1 squared is 1. Absolute value of 1 is 1. 2 to the 1st is 2. 1 to the 3rd power is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Okay. Next one, 2. 2 squared is 4. Absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 to the 2nd power is 4. 2 to the 3rd power, so 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Square root of 2 is 1.414, and then some other numbers. Okay, cool, pretty easy. We should all know how to do that. Okay, right below, we're going to graph this. So let's just pick some points. So we have this. We're just making a straight line. So it should look something like this. The next one, x squared. Okay, so we have a dot at 0, 0. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4, so 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. -1 squared is +1. 2 squared, -2 squared is 4, so we're just making a U. Perfect. Absolute value. Okay, so absolute value of 0 is 0. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of 2 is 2. Absolute value of -1 is +1. Absolute value of -2 is +2. So just just doing like a rough sketch. Okay, perfect, good. Okay, next one. Okay, so you can go on to Desmos to see what this is going to look like. I'm just going to do it the normal way that I know. So 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the first is 2, 2 to the second is 4, 2 to the third is 8. Just going to shoot up like that. And then as you go through this, it just gets smaller and smaller and closer down to the base. It will never cross the x-axis. So we're going down, 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 down. It just never crosses. Okay, perfect. X to the third, again, we're just plugging in the stuff that we already found. So this is 0, 1 to the third is 1, 2 to the third is 8, negative, negative, perfect. So it should give you a little zigzag thing like this. So it just looks like a little S. Some people called it a snake before. Really, as long as you just remember, hey, it's an S shape. Okay, and then the last one, 0, 0. 1. Square root of 2 is 1.4, so it just kind of goes up like this. This 9's an easy one, so square root of 9 is 3. So I'm going to just put a dot right there. Okay, the way that this works, so you start at 0 and then it shoots off to the right, okay? So if you have a spot where it just starts, then it's automatically this kind of graph. Okay, so now, parent functions. We just drew all of the parent functions. So thinking about this closer, a linear function. This is the one that we're most familiar with. So y equals mx plus b, right? Okay, an example could be y equals 2x plus 3. So it looks like it's just a straight line. That's really all I'm looking for there. Quadratic. So a quadratic makes a U shape. Looking back up above, which one of these pictures is a U shape? The second one. So I'm going to write y equals x squared. So if anything is to the second power, then it is considered a quadratic. So I'm going to go ahead and give an example, y equals x squared minus 4. So as long as it makes that U shape, it counts as being quadratic. So you know what? We can even go up here and write down this is linear, this is a quadratic. Okay, the next one, absolute value. Well, the picture, it looks like it's a V. So what does that equation look like? Well, it looks like absolute value of x. So we're going to go ahead and write down y equals the absolute value of x. An example could be y equals an absolute value of x plus 3. That would count. So up at the top, let's go ahead and write down that we have an absolute value. Okay, the next one looks like it's like kind of making an L type of shape. So which one of our bottom three does that look like? It looks like the first one. So I'm going to write down that I have y equals, okay, so I'm not going to put 2. I'm just going to put the letter a to the x power. So it's just any number to the x power would count. So an example would be y equals 3 to the x or 2 to the x. Okay, so up at the top right here, I'm going to write that this one is exponential. The next one, it looks like it's an S, so what's my S-shaped one look like? X to the third. So real quick, I'm going to just write this up here. This one is cubic. So y equals x to the third. Another example could be y equals x to the third plus 2. Or x to the third plus 7. You can come up with whatever number that you want as long as it makes that S shape. The very last one is our square root. So I'm going to go ahead up here and write that this is a square root equation because it has a starting point. If you notice, each of these have a specific starting point where they begin. It does not go over to the negatives at all. So let's go ahead and write down what the equation would be. So the equation is y equals the square root of x. And I'm going to go ahead and just put plus a. You don't have to, you can just put y equals the square root of x, that would still work just fine. So my equation would be y equals square root of x, I don't know, plus 3 or plus 5. Or you could do y equals the square root of x plus 3 all under the square root plus 7 or plus nothing. Okay, so that is it for today. Go ahead online and I posted the homework so you can go on there and work on these problems. Have a good rest of your day.